Hi, this is Zibby Owens, and you're listening to the award-winning podcast, Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. I'm also the host of Moms Don't Have Time to Lose Weight, and I'm the editor of the anthology, which you should run out and buy, called Moms Don't Have Time to, a Quarantine Anthology. All proceeds of that book go to COVID-19 vaccine research. And I'm the editor-in-chief of Moms Don't Have Time to Write, a new publication on Medium, and we're accepting submissions, so please send your personal essays there. And if all that isn't enough, you can follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens, and my website is zibbyowens.com. Okay, now back to this amazing podcast. Clare Mackintosh is the author of Hostage, a locked room thriller. Clare is an award-winning New York Times and international best-selling author. She spent 12 years on the police force in England and has written for The Guardian, Good Housekeeping, and other publications. Translated into 40 languages, her books have sold more than 2 million copies worldwide. Clare lives in North Wales with her husband and their 3 children. Welcome, Clare. Thanks for coming on Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books to discuss Hostage. You can save hundreds of lives or the one that matters most. ...
Well, that's good. You should be like one of those movie announcers. You just need to get that gravelly
That's true.
voice.
I need to be a man with a low voice. Other than that, I'm fine. Excellent. And by the way, may I just say that you had the coolest marketing package that I've seen with that came so long ago now. I feel like when even was that? Months ago with describe it to everybody. What did you do? Because it's like
they did such a cool job. I was quite envious. I was quite jealous because I'm in the UK, and so I have my UK team doing stuff. But in the States, they put together this really cool in-flight magazine. And then what else? Because I haven't had it.
I feel like there was a ticket and it was like a whole, you felt like you were going on the flight.
Which was really good timing, of course, because nobody was going on a flight at all. So I figured actually it's going to work one of two ways. It's either going to be really great and make people really excited, or everyone's going to go, I don't want to go on a plane.
Well, I don't want to be a hostage necessarily,
No, I mean, it would be nice to go on a slightly less eventful flight than the one that's in the book.
Although it sounds amazing, this flight to, Sydney and the 20 hours, not the fact that it's 20 hours, but how luxurious it was. And I mean, I don't know, it sounded like a plane I would want to try out.
The thing that I was most excited about in my fictional world was the fact that the people in business class got these special commemorative pajamas
to
wear, which I don't think is a thing. It
is a thing. You get pajamas on flights.
Oh, you go on posher flights than I do. Clearly,
you get flights on British Airways on pajamas. Yes, you do. I have them in my closet because I went on my honeymoon to Wimbledon and I saved my pajamas.
That is the coolest thing.
Oh, come on, stop. You didn't do research. You wrote a whole book about this.
I've just never, obviously, flown on the sort of ticket that comes with its own pajamas, Zibby.
Yeah, no, you did not make it up. They do it on most international flights. And Air France, I feel like Air France does pajamas.
I think maybe I'm just not traveling in the right class.
I think that's the problem.
What it is. I need to sell more books. Have you worn these pajamas since?
I have. I always change right into them because I think it's the funniest thing. I should find you a picture. If I can find it after this, I'll send it to you from my honeymoon where and they're oversized men's pajamas. And next thing you know, I'm padding down the hall in my.
That is so cool. So I'm trying to think of what I've had free on planes. So I've had some sort of nice sleep masks and sprays, the aromatherapy spray. That was very nice. The weirdest thing I've had is a little China, a kind of porcelain house flying with KLM. These are not sponsored airlines, we should point out.
Yes.
The Dutch airline. And they were little Dutch houses. I'm not really sure what it was for. So that was a bit odd. But I love all that stuff. And I love even flying with really sort of budget airlines. I love airline food and little miniature salt and pepper pots. And it's a little miniature cutlery that doesn't really cut properly because you can't take knives on planes. I miss travel.
Me too. The stale rolls.
Oh,
the freezing cold butter. That's like a brick that you have to saw through with your plastic.
Yeah. And do you know what? So I wrote this book sort of during the pandemic, or certainly edited it. It had kind of been written before it, but I had envisaged that the whole of 2020, while I was putting the finishing touches to this book, that I would do what I normally do, which is write on planes. That's kind of my thing, is when I'm traveling for book festivals or signings, whatever, I play little games with myself. So I will upgrade myself if I'm prepared to work, or I'll go into a lounge. So I'll get to the airport and I'll say, right, you can use the business lounge, but only if you write 1,000 words. And then, I'm on the plane and you can have a glass of champagne once you've written, 200 words. I don't want to put it off too long. So I have these little games and I break up my writing with nice, fun stuff like going to the bar, if there's a bar on the plane, or, I don't know, watching an episode of Friends or something. But of course, I didn't have any of that last year. And so I just had to be in my office with no one bringing me pretzels. It was very disappointing.
I'm very sorry.
Does this classify as a first world problem? I think it might.
I love writing on planes. I love doing like anything productive on planes. I'm kind of sad that, I'm super sad that now it's just another place to email with Wi-Fi and everything. Because that was like the one protected space to be creative or to get through a book or, read or write or whatever. Anyway.
And this is the sort of thinking about your not having time to do anything. The thing about plane time is that it feels like free time. And in fact,
does.
Sometimes if you are going back in time, then it actually is free time. Like you literally travel, you get a free day.
Yes.
So you've done you've done a whole day's work and then you arrive and you're massively jet lagged and you feel a bit sick. But you've got another day and it's free and you get to do more work or read a book and I love that. And it blows my mind just a tiny bit because I can't quite get my head around actual time travel.
I totally agree. Yeah. There's something about that where you're like, oh, I landed and it's like only 7 a.m. Everybody here is just waking up, but like, look at me. And I'm, yeah, I love that. Everything is sort of suspended. Crazy. Okay. So for this book, you start out with a mother and her estranged husband. And, this makes me very nervous as I'm trying to hire a new nanny on the weekends. For what happens with this au pair right at the beginning. And anyway, and sort of a special needs kid who they've adopted and what this flight will do for their relationship and the mother and what is she hiding and all of this drama. So tell me, just take me back before you envisioned a life of pretzel eating, above the oceans or whatever. Why this family? Like, how'd you come up with them?
Okay. So the way I write my books generally is I start with the premise. So I start with kind of the question and that was what happens if you're on a long haul flight, you can't contact people on the ground, and somebody anonymous on that plane puts a flight attendant in an impossible situation, which is, do you save the plane or do you save your family back home? So that's my starting point, which is obviously a fairly horrific starting point. And then I think about who is in that situation. So when I started planning Hostage, I started with Mina. I generally start with mum, I guess, because I am one. And so that's easy. I'm always lazy. Start with the easiest job. And Mina is quite a complicated person because she's got various things that happened in her past that impact on her decision making. And, that's all of us, all these layers that we build up. And I knew that I wanted her relationship with her child to be quite challenging. And then what happened was I had a conversation with a friend of mine who has an 8-year-old daughter who was adopted as a baby. And before I knew, so I happen to know a number of parents of adopted children, which is quite common for anyone like me who's gone through fertility treatment. You start to know a lot of parents who have come to their family in different ways. And this particular friend was telling me about a moment when her 8-year-old daughter came to her for a hug for the first time at the age of 8, the first time that she had instigated affection. And it was a very moving moment, but it also really made me think about what that's like to have a daughter for 8 years who finds it so difficult to ask for affection because of what happened to that child as a baby. What does that do to you as a mother? And I have a daughter who has autism, and for whom affection is quite a tricky thing, that sometimes she needs to be held but won't be held. And it's something I know a little bit about. So that slotted a few things into place, and that's how Sophia came about. And Sophia in Hostage is 5 years old, and she was adopted at birth, but she comes from a chaotic family where affection wasn't given to her, and where she cried and nobody came. And those are habits that have formed and are so ingrained that makes her quite a challenging child. And then the final piece in that family dynamic is Adam, who is a police officer. And I was a police officer for 12 years. And what I wanted to write about when I wrote about Adam was a police officer who we see off duty, because cops are like the rest of us, where, we've got issues and worries and anxieties and weaknesses. And so although we meet Adam briefly at work, this is not him as a police officer. This is Adam as a dad at home with all the secrets and problems that he's got. So that's that little triangle, and the relationship that the parents have with each other and with their child, and then them as a threesome.
Wow. So interesting. Well, I feel like we got Adam a little bit at work, but he was already like failing out of work. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like you already were like, had him 1 foot out the door by messing up and getting called to the boss's office, and, his back up against the thing so all of his peers can see him, and all worried about his phone records. And, then you're like, okay, enough of that. Send him on his way.
He's in trouble. He's in trouble from the outset. And I like to tell stories from multiple points of view, which you have to be a little bit careful about, because as a reader, it can get a bit kind of, you get what I call literary whiplash if you're going from one person to another too fast. But if you, as a writer, can pull it off, then it gives you a much more three-dimensional experience from a situation. And so what we have in Hostage is we have mum and dad's, Mina and Adam's situations, and they are both in very, very difficult situations in different but connected ways. And then we also get to see little insights into some of the passengers on this special 20-hour flight. And that was really fun to do.
That's also, because I'm always wondering what's up with all of the people, right? Like, what's their story? What are we all doing here? Like,
this is it. And
trying to glean it when you're like sitting next to someone and like, what's he working on? No one's ever going to want to be near me after this podcast. I'm finally admitting how like totally snoopy of a person I am. And,
But this is the thing, isn't it? When you are a creative person, whether you produce art or you consume it, I think you're a kind of professional people watcher. And so whenever I'm traveling, and if I'm traveling with work, which is most of my traveling, I'm traveling solo. So I'm not being distracted by the kids, vomiting or wanting snacks or like just climbing on me or all the things that they do, or by making conversation with my husband or a friend. I'm just me, and I'm eavesdropping and watching. And I think it's fascinating to make up stories and to wonder, if the person they're traveling with is the person they're married to, or someone they just met at the airport, or, all those little relationships. And long haul flights are just, I find the concept of them, when you boil it down, really quite a potentially threatening environment. So you're locked. It is literally a locked and pressurized room. You cannot go anywhere. Nobody can come in. So from a writer's perspective, it's both exciting and challenging, because you can't suddenly introduce a new character that just kind of walks on set halfway through the flight. But also, where else do you sleep? Like, this far, 6 inches away from a stranger's head. That's just the weirdest thing. You literally sleep as close as you sleep to someone you're in a relationship with. And yet you might not even exchange 2 words with them. And it's a weird concept. You've got no idea what they're like or whether they mean you harm.
Wow. Yeah, you had a line in the book similar to this, where you said like what could happen, 20 hours, all breathing the same air, that's it. And I read, I was like, Okay. I don't know if I can ever get on another plane at this point, basically. Like, cause now I'm like, so like you have to pretend when you're in it that all these weird things are not happening. Otherwise no one would ever fly. Right.
Yes, it is a weird thing. And I remember seeing years and years ago a particular airline, which I won't name, where they were talking about an idea that they'd had. And this never actually happened, I'm glad to say. But the idea was that passengers on a flight would be able to send messages and drinks to another passenger on the flight. So, you imagine
They have this.
What?
They have this. I've done this on your little phones that you like pull out like on the screens or something.
Yes,
you can text because I've like, yeah.
You can send a message now. So that in itself, I think, has the potential to be creepy. But imagine so the idea was that you would be able to send a drink to, with a note to another seat. So imagine you're a lone woman and you're traveling and you can't go anywhere. It's not like a bar where you can leave. And the man in, row 46, whatever, sends you a martini with a note saying, pass my row or meet you in the bathroom. It's just horrible. It's the creepiest thing. And so I've been thinking for ages about how unsettling it would be to know that there was someone who knew more about you, perhaps than you knew about them, or some kind of hidden threat when there's just no opportunity to get off.
I'm scared just even talking to you. I'm telling you, I don't know. This is not good. So when you're writing, like, do you get creeped out yourself? Like when you're sitting there, like, and I don't know where you tell me where you like to work and like, let me envision, like, are you right at this?
Okay. So I'm here now. I'm at my desk.
And what is that all behind you, by the way? All these different.
This is my wallpaper. So this is wallpaper of classic Penguin books.
Oh my gosh. It's so cool.
And it's fun. This is really lovely. And then on the other side of me are bookshelves. So in fact, very similar to yours, although I'm slightly disturbed by your rainbow shelves, which are beautiful.
Thank you.
How do you find anything?
Well, first of all, I don't. I have to just like read them over every single time. But these don't really move. I like set these up last July. My closet around the corner has 8,000 books in it. And I have to like read through them like every 2 minutes. But I have to say I'm very visual. So this helps me more. Like if I'm like, oh, I'm looking for hostage, then I just can like quickly look in the closet and I'm like, where's the black one? Like where, and then my eye goes to it.
That's cool. Okay. So mine are arranged alphabetically. And then they're sort of interspersed with odd things, sort of like souvenirs, I suppose. So I've got my police hat, which I don't think I was supposed to leave the police with. I think I was supposed to hand it in, but it's on my shelf. And a keep cup, a travel mug signed by Lee Child. And what else? A little Mexican figure from a book festival. So lots of kind of work-related things that I find quite inspiring because they remind me of book festivals or meeting readers, whatever. And I don't normally write here because I normally write when I'm traveling, and either on planes or trains or in anonymous hotel rooms I really like, or cafes in cities where I don't speak the language, so I can't get distracted by eavesdropping. I get the kind of the buzz of people. And what I found last year is having for years said there's really no such thing as writer's block or creative block, and been privately quite dismissive and a little bit scathing about it, that actually you just have to knuckle down and do the work. Last year, my brain ground to a halt and I couldn't write. And I would come up to my office sort of in between homeschooling and feeding children and go, right, I've got an hour, I've got to write. And I just couldn't. And I was absolutely, completely creatively blocked. And I hadn't realized how much impact environment has on how I write and what feeds into that creativity. And I found that I could do sort of task-focused work. So I could edit and I could write a newsletter or a blog post or something that had a really clearly defined goal, but I couldn't brainstorm. I couldn't do, blue sky thinking, think of a new novel idea or come up with something really fresh, because nothing was feeding my creativity. And what I had to do was artificially replicate that freedom that I get from travel by reading outside my genre. So reading different types of books, reading nonfiction, listening to podcasts. I went absolutely mad on podcasts, looking at art. I mean, all sorts of different things that would replace that creative injection that I get from travel. And then fortunately it's come back and I can write again.
Wow, that is so interesting. I'm picturing you sitting there with like foreign languages you don't even speak, playing on your Bluetooth speaker or something.
Give me Russian. This is
exactly
now. Yeah, well, I listen when I do write, which fortunately I'm back into the swing of it. I listen to music, and one of the ways that I put myself in the right kind of frame of mind, the right zone to write my books, is listening to this will horrify most people. It horrifies most people I know. Listening to the same piece of music on a loop, which I've now done, Zibby, for 3 years.
Stop. The same song?
Well, it's a soundtrack. I got so excited and I just jolted my desk. It's a soundtrack to a drama, to a UK drama called Keeping Faith, which was very, very good. And it's this sort of instrumental, quite moody background music. And I have it very, very low. And I don't even notice it's on now. So my husband will come into my office and he'll go, "Oh my God, you've got that music on again." And I'm like, "What music?" But it just, I don't know, it sort of unlocks something. It's like a Pavlovian response. You know, I hear the music and I'm like, "Oh, this is writing time." And I'm straight kind of into my book.
I was going to say, I can recommend some other albums. I'll send you a few songs, Claire. You can put them in the rotation. Just mix it up. Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah. My daughter is at the age where she likes to play the same song like 1,000 times in a row. And doesn't quite have that same meditative creation inspiring effect. Let me just say that. Oh my gosh. Wait, so what are you working on now? You said you're able to write.
Yeah, so I had a sudden kind of burst of creativity, and so I'm kind of back on track, and I am doing the third edit of next summer's book, which is a murder mystery, and I've just written the synopsis for 2023's book, which is a thriller, and I'm planning a nonfiction that I've got to write this summer. So I'm really kind of fired up, and words flying out of my fingers onto my keyboard.
A lot of champagne then, huh? So many words. You've upped your eligibility more than 2. Now you could do 10 glasses of champagne in a day. Oh my gosh. So what advice would you have for aspiring authors?
Okay, two bits of advice. One really super practical and one more sort of psychological, I suppose. So the second one first. So everyone says you've got to read, and you have got to read. But what I want to say to people is read widely. So read outside of your genre. You know, if you don't think you like historical fiction, well, read historical fiction, because it's amazing how many lessons you can learn from different genres. And the same structure applies to any book. So you can read a romantic comedy and you will find the same structure, the same narrative arc as you'll find in a thriller. You still need the payoff, the twist, the emotional journey. So read widely. And then the practical tip is something that I learned when I was working full-time and my writing time was concentrated and limited. So I read lots of advice from people saying, write every day. And, I was a police officer with 2 young children. I couldn't write every day. I couldn't write 100 words. I couldn't write my own name sometimes when I finished work. So I had chunks of writing time, maybe once a week, maybe once every 10 days. And I would suddenly find 3 hours where I could write. So what I learned was I need to be able to plunge myself into that story again. And the way that I did and still do that is by never finishing at the end of a chapter or a scene, by stopping right in the middle of a piece of dialogue or a piece of action, something where I know exactly what's happening. And what that means is the next time I sit at my desk, whether it's, the next day or 3 weeks later, I can pick up the threads of that story and go straight back into it. And the only time I look at a blank page is when I start a new book.
I've heard that advice before, but I always forget. And that's such great It's such a great trick to do. Yeah, very simple. But I feel like if you're really on a roll, it's really hard to stop. You know, you want to like finish the chapter or something.
It is. And I think if you are a certain personality type, and this is instinctively me, it's a nice, neat place to finish. And we want to get to the end of the chapter and you can tick it off. But it is very helpful if you do. Sometimes it just works that you're at the end of a chapter. And if I do that, then I go and make notes on the next chapter so that I'm literally, I never want to sit down and look at a blank page. And actually last year, I did work in chapters, and I only remember that because I incentivized myself. So because there was no travel and I couldn't upgrade myself, I incentivized myself by buying up luxury advent calendars in the January sales, which is a thing. And I had 3 of them. I had one for scented candles and one for chocolate and one for little miniature gin bottles. And when I finished a chapter, I was allowed to open an advent calendar door and get the gift inside. I am actually a child, aren't I?
I love these tricks. I love this. This is amazing. This is literally like, are you the type of person who needs some sort of external motivation to complete your work? If so, try the Clare Mackintosh strategy of writing.
It's like one of those awful kind of flow charts in a magazine, isn't it? Like a quiz. And this is solution. Well, yeah, that's actually my top writer tip is wait until after Christmas and then go online and buy up discount advent calendars to incentivize yourself.
I'm going to put it in my calendar right now. January 2nd, shopping time.
What's your luxury advent calendar? What would you want to find behind the door?
Maybe M&Ms.
Nice. That's
love M&Ms.
Good choice.
Yeah. But I don't know how good they'll carry over for like years. I guess I have to write kind of quickly. I don't know. Anyway, awesome. Okay, Clare, thank you so much. This was so much fun. And I'm going to be thinking of you as I, make some new like little trick hacks for myself and convince myself to do anything with some sort of reward system in place, or maybe even use this for my children to somehow get the desired behaviors out of them that I want.
I am still 7. And if you gave me a sticker on my reward chart every time I finished a chapter, I would probably finish my books like really fast.
Okay. I will send you some I'm gonna send you some songs and some stars.
A photo of you in your pajamas.
Yes, and the photo of me in my pajamas. Okay.
That's not weird at all. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
You too. Thanks for coming. Have a great day. Bye. Thanks for listening to this episode of Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram at Zibby Owens and at Moms Don't Have Time to Read Books. Also sign up for my newsletter at zibbyowens.com and sign up for my virtual book club and meet lots of authors on Zoom every other week. Thanks so much to Steve and Ryan at Texture Sound for the sound editing. And thank you to Morning Moon Productions for providing this fantastic intro and outro music.